Right, let's do it then. The big one, the final. FaZe, Na'Vi. FaZe got their major. We'll talk about them second. Let's talk about Na'Vi. Look, we had a feeling. I know you shared this feeling that Na'Vi weren't going to be at the peak of their powers at this event. There's a lot going on, a lot of mitigating circumstances for that. There was also the Boomich question, which was he going to still be on the team? Spoiler, on the day we're recording this, we now know the answer to that is no. For those that aren't aware, his wife had expressed support for Putin and the Russian military. Yes, the wife that accepted his proposal from the previous major. They've also had some marital problems leading to some...
It's been on and off as far as I can tell, yeah.
Yes, which has led to some, speculation that, I don't know, I'm not going to indulge in it.
I mean, sadly, he did it all publicly. So guess what? This is what happens when you do it publicly. It's one thing, by the way, if he'd said nothing publicly about this relationship and all those people in CIS region were speculating, I'd say they have to shut the fuck up. That's totally unacceptable, unprofessional. It is unfortunate. When he put it on Broad Street and he did it at the last major, then people are sadly going to follow that like they do their fucking celebrity gossip, aren't they? That's what it's become. Yeah, it's overshadowed this team, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it as we'll get to next episode, it's sort of hard to argue, really. I mean, listen, it's the first time I've ever seen a player get dropped for something a wife did. I don't like that as a precedent.
That's mental, isn't it?
Yeah. But I'll also add, I think there were other issues. It's not just that. It's a totality of everything else that's going on. So we'll get into that next time. But anyway, the bottom line is Na'Vi did have a lot of question marks about it coming in. Were we even going to get Peak Simple was another question as well. We didn't, not when it was, at least when it mattered, we didn't. And so Na'Vi really kind of made it to this final predicated on two things, in my opinion. First is Electronic's Eternal LAN buff, which is just the stuff of legends. It's absolutely insane how good he gets at LAN compared to what he's like online. Just one of those guys who's built for it. And had an unbelievable performance. I think it was the Nuke game against ENCE, where he just popped off and just destroyed them. And then, of course, Bit, probably the greatest rookie in the history of the game at this point, you would have to say. He was statistically their best player over the tournament. He had huge impact. He was great in this final even. It was a real shame to see him on the losing side. Had they won, he would have been the youngest player ever to get back-to-back majors.
Almost certainly would have won the MVP as well.
And would have won the MVP, yeah. So, I mean, listen, Na'Vi were in it at various times, but I do feel that if it was the same Na'Vi without the geopolitical situation and all of the impact it's had on this team that had come to Antwerp, if we were living in the Stockholm world at Antwerp, I think they would have had two majors back to back.
Yes. But this way, the way the year ended, where they closed out all the lands, they won all of them that they attended. Absolutely. If all this stuff doesn't happen, look, you could certainly still have had events where obviously you dipped or you lost to a team and they played well. I think that team would have won two majors. I think they would have had an era. I think they would have just gone nearly, they might have lost maybe one land, maybe they could have lost the Katowice, but they would have had a March otherwise where everything would be top four, top six. They'd win most of the tournaments. I don't know that it'd be as dominant, but I think they would have won. I mean, they almost won this one. I know people are going to think like they didn't. They almost did, guys. They really would have. Like even that second map's a totally different map. If you pick your Inferno into them, not even their best map, and they beat you on it, you're thinking twice on that next map. All of a sudden, the Nuke game's a very different scenario. They play without pressure now. Now it's a free roll for them. And if they get to the third map, guys, the third map, I think was the Ancient. Like, I think they would have won that. I think that actually was, that's where the danger for FaZe.
No,
like.
I
thought they had to 2-0, That's why for me, the way FaZe won Inferno, I didn't have any diss on Na'Vi, although certainly Simple played like shit in the final, but whatever. By the way, even as the best possible excuse you could ever have, he's got all that shit going on with his fucking shit back at home and his team's falling apart. He knows it's probably it. That's going to put insane extra pressure. But even with that to one side, it was more like I just looked at FaZe and I was like, bloody hell, if you're going to do these moves and get the result and win the rounds, you're just meant to win. This is one of those days where you just, in the same way as you have the day where everything goes wrong, the red light comes on when you need it to be green, the elevator closes just as you run it. You have the other days where everything's just going flawless. That was what it was for FaZe. Because I really feel like another day. different performance for Simple. They win this major, even without being at peak power. That really showed, that's a testament to how crazy this Na'Vi lineup was. And I think, sadly, the real tragedy of the Na'Vi lineup in game is, holy fuck, this was the one time ever someone stacked like star level talents and they could all play at the same time. Like, it's crazy. We even actually the old FaZe clans of Carrigan, which had the billing of that, even they had sort of took turns, or someone had a few months where they weren't as good and then kicked back into gear and was able to chill for a while. This team was an amazing team, and the things they did, it says a lot that they could be off their game and still be in the final like this. What a fucking sick lineup of players.
I know, mad, isn't it? And you know, I think you tweeted out about it, but you know, it's like, you know, alternate timeline. You know, that team could have made a run.
Oh, I'd love to see what they could do. Yeah,
you know, it really
love to see it.
Yeah, it really could have matched the old 1.6 2010 like Na'Vi run. You know, it was just
the only consolation is this: they will at least still have the status, in my opinion, where if you did that thing, if you took a team at their peak level for one match, they might be the winner for that, mate. They really might. Yeah. I know it's crazy because they don't have the super IGL on the brain, but that's the thing about Counter-Strike. If you really can just shoot everyone in the head, you will win. You will win the game.
You will win the game, totally. So yeah, I mean, you know, felt super sorry for them. You know,
absolutely.
And listen, I'll be completely honest. I agree with you. I think chances are, based on Boomic's performance, his demeanor, you know, you probably shouldn't read too much into that, but whatever. And Simple's tweet immediately afterwards when he said the end, just, you know, almost apropos of nothing in his tweet. I think everybody knew going into this Boomic was out. I think based on the statement Boomic gave when he apologized for his wife's behavior, and he said, I should have said something sooner. I'm really sorry. I love playing for this club. It means everything.
There's an ominous tone to that, isn't there? That's not sort of like, well, you know, we fixed it now, though, guys, so no problems going forward. That almost sounds like I done fucked up in it, but got to take it on the chin. Sorry, bye.
And listen, in that sense, and this is like, I don't know, probably, again, I'll get into it deeper on when we start talking about the roster mania stuff. But I'll just say, like, I've never been sold on Boom, which is the IGL in this thing.
Sure.
You know, he was, like, say, you know, groomed for success by Zeus. He was his pick. They wanted him to come in and, you know, do this, like, you know, replacement role where he was going to learn how to become a leader from one of the, you know, greats within the organization. But, you know, he never got to finish that project. And then Boomic was kind of left there. And it's like, what's Boomic going to tell Simple about, like, how...
have you ever noticed, by the way, that's the one take we have that's never gotten any backlash from CI's community, including Na'Vi. The headline was never Boomic isn't a real IGL. I think it might even have been a headline from me on one of those sites. Yeah. I've never had, that's not when the Seniors and the Zeus's come out with the daggers. That's not when Simple tells me I'm an idiot and all that. No one seems to give a fuck. I think essentially that's the open secret in that team. I mean, I was saying this when I was doing one of my watch parties. Mate, in the game against Heroic, when they're doing like tactical timeouts, because it's like they have to win this gap. They're in the deep shit. They're in the trenches fighting the war. Mate, he's not talking during the tactical timeout. His mouth just... Other people are talking. Blade's talking. Same thing. What is the most famous thing Blade does? At the beginning of each game, he hands out those that like fucking almost like dossiers, like, here's your shit. Like, mate, what's Boomic doing? I'll contrast it like this. You know, one area Carrigan will never get his due, mate. He really was trying to ice skate uphill. He was trying to win that first major with Robban, who, as far as I can tell, does not impose like a system. He's just the old school manager type guy, good guy, glue guy. And then in the modern one, people even forget to give him credit for this, mate. Who was their coach? They didn't have one because Robban's banned. So nobody. A guy just stood behind them who's like the analyst or something. Like, mate, this is mental. Like, that's with no coach. Like, their coach clearly has an enormous impact on the team. And unfortunately, in this case, I feel I know it sounds harsh, but I have to take some of the credit back from Boomic. I've just never seen what he does. I've even tried reading his interviews, mate. I never really get a vibe like he even thinks like an IGL. It's why I think it's a very unique team. I think it'll go down as one of the craziest unique setups of all time of whatever Blade did to that squad.
Basically, I feel like, you know, listen, Boomic obviously does something.
Of course, yes.
But I also think perhaps his strength is being almost like, and this might generate the CIS headlines, let's see, is that he is the blank slate. He is the conduit. I think Zeus is a narcissist.
Yes.
So I think Zeus would have gone out and picked somebody that was impressionable and would, yes, I will become just like you. And then Zeus could say, see, I have made my avatar in the game. Now, obviously, in you know, that's speculation again. But I do think that Blade can't be on the server. Blade can't communicate all the time. You've seen the type of work Blade puts in. I think when Blade was getting criticized when this Na'Vi team was failing back when they were bizarrely insisting on playing Flamey, and even Blade was saying Flamey will never get back to the top in interviews. You know, I think Blade did assess himself and did change things up. In the final, they regressed. There was some old school Na'Vi bullshit at play here, where it was 15 seconds on the clock to execute on a bomb site, really telegraphed. And that was how Na'Vi were playing when they were getting spanked by Gambit, you know, back last year. And so I think probably what happened is Boomich, I think the pressure cooker, I think what was going on in his personal life. I think Boomich broke down in this game.
Sure.
And that was, and he really underperformed as a player as well. And I think that probably tells you that's what he does. He is the guy, soaks it all up, conveys it to the rest of the team, but does it in a way where he's not a big forceful personality, because you don't need a big forceful personality in that team. In fact, the reason Na'Vi used to have problems in the past was they had these veterans and these upstarts all with big personalities, and they would just tear strips off each other. They were essentially a dysfunctional Virtus Pro at one point. So, you know, I think Boomich's gift was that he can put Boomich in his mind mentally to one side and channel a bit of Zeus, a bit of Blade, a bit of whoever he needs to, and make sure everyone stays on point with the tactics.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.